Hi, this is Debbie Baker. Um, for this episode, for want of a better expression, I want to talk about living wills. People often call me and say they need a living will, which is about end of life decisions, when they really need a will, which is what they want done with their assets after they pass. And I looked up some definitions that apply in a living will, and I thought I would just talk about them a little bit and read some from an article that I downloaded. One of the things that happens in a living will is that at the end of life, which people are asked to choose, it's about choosing whether you want life support, whether a person wants life support. And people are given three options. They're given persistent vegetative state, end stage condition, and terminal condition. Okay. Um, and I have, so actually, and in order to execute those, in order for somebody to give somebody else permission to withdraw life support if that's what they want, an attending physician and a consulting physician have to agree that there's no reasonable medical probability of recovery for the patient. And people would say, understandably, that's splitting hairs, which that language, no reasonable medical probability. I agree, but consider the potential horror of a doctor guaranteeing you that your loved one will pass and then they don't, or promising you that they will within a short period of time and they don't. So it seems to me physicians are well served to make that kind of not vague but considered statement. So here's what an attending physician is defined as. It means the primary physician who has responsibility for the treatment and care of the patient. Now, end of life is probably not your primary care physician. It's not the person, man or woman, that you go to see like once a year, you know, once every 2 years, never, but it's not that person who's out there with people who are older. I've learned Medicare generally wants people to go see their primary care physician at least twice a year. And I know people have gotten yelled at by their primary care physician when they say, I'm healthy and I'll call you if something's wrong. And the physician says, listen, if you don't come in, Medicare is going to give us grief about the fact that we're not taking proper care of you. So they go twice a year to keep their doctor happy. But that's the primary care physician who may not be the one who's responsible for end of life. It wouldn't be your oncologist or your cardiologist or whatever. That's your attending physician. An end stage condition, because there are distinctions, means an irreversible condition that's caused by injury, disease, or illness. I use end stage kidney failure or liver failure as an example of that, which has resulted in progressively severe and permanent deterioration. And here's the language of this definition, and which to a reasonable degree of medical probability, treatment of the condition would be ineffective. All of us have probably known people who are end stage conditions. Could be cancer, could be liver failure, could be kidney failure, could be congestive heart failure, all sorts of conditions. Okay. And if that exists on the forms, you can choose that as a way to have your physician discontinue life support. Life prolonging procedures is also something that people ask about. I mean, here in Florida, Baycare has this really good living will, which gives the option to patients to choose in the event of an end stage terminal or persistent vegetative state. Do they want surgery? Do they want antibiotics? Do they want a feeding tube? Do they want CPR? They can have it. They can request it. No problem. I always refer people back to the fact that the definition of their condition means that there's no reasonable medical probability of improvement back to anything resembling normal. When my mother was dying, what I remember most about my older brother was mom would have a bad day, and then she'd have a better day. And I would call my brother and say, hey, mom had a good day. And he would say, yes, but was it as good as 3 days ago? And I'd have to say, no, it wasn't. So these are just tough, tough decisions, not easily made. And I've said this before, you have to choose somebody to execute these who you trust to do them, whether they agree with you or not. Somebody you can say to the family, mom said this, or dad said this, or our brother said this, or our sister said this, because you are taking care of your loved one the way ones they wanted to be taken care of. I can't emphasize that enough. So the living will is voluntarily executed by the patient and it's witnessed. It's really important that to do. A persistent vegetative state means a permanent and irreversible condition of unconsciousness in which there's the absence of voluntary action or cognitive behavior and an inability to communicate. People in comas with other conditions, people who have had massive strokes and are non-communicative, end-stage dementia where people just have stopped functioning. These are all things where you want to traumatic brain injuries. You want to tell your loved ones what you want to do. None of us want our loved ones to die. We may be glad that they're not suffering anymore. No argument there. But we don't want to lose them. Do we want to keep them around when they're not our loved one anymore? When they don't recognize us? When they can no longer communicate? Where do we want to? And it's a tough choice. And I have a family right now. Mom was dying, and one of her sons was in the hospital, and she knew she was going to die, and she waited for him to get home so he could say goodbye. And she died within hours. But would you want to have done something to make her, keep her alive, whatever that would have been? The family opted no. Terminal condition, a condition caused by injury, disease, or illness from which there's no reasonable medical probability of recovery, and which without treatment can be expected to cause death. So that could be the person who's got stage 4 cancer, and they want no part of any more treatment. And their family thinks they should keep fighting. Had somebody tell me just this week, her husband had one of those conditions. And as soon as she realized that it was her selfishness and unwillingness to let go, and told him that she understood what he'd been telling her, that it was time for him to go, and she gave him permission, again, he died within hours. And she saw that she hadn't been doing him a favor by insisting that he stay around. Again, that's a living will. All states have them. They have them with different modes of how you get them executed and completed. Florida needs 2 witnesses. It doesn't need a notary. You have to check from wherever you're watching. But it's a document that you want to have, and you want people who love you to have, and your doctors to have, so when end-of-life decisions come, they do what you want. And it's not a happy topic, but I will tell you that families feel great senses of relief when it's done. So thanks for listening. Share, comment, like. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks.